Salesforce is a major tech company that sells software mostly to businesses. Today, Salesforce announced that it won't work with customers who sell semi-automatic firearms or magazines that hold what gun control groups say are too many rounds. Last year, Citigroup announced it would not allow stores that sell semi-automatic weapons to use their credit card services. That's where we are today. But it's not hard to imagine what it might be like tomorrow. What if, for example, America, corporate America, decided to punish gun owners in addition to gun sellers? You've got a firearm at home, so you can no longer buy car insurance. You can't use Facebook. You can't open a checking account. You can't have a credit card. You can't stay in hotels. Well, the libertarians will tell you that's just fine. Just a free market at work. If you don't like it, open your own credit card company. But you'd have to be a moron to believe them.
Can we pause again? I have no problem with it. Zero.
Really?
Zero. There's no part of that affects me for two reasons. One, absolutely, in every single one of these industries, other people will come along and compete.
Well, hold on.
Yes.
So you're saying there are really big companies. To say, I disagree with you on that pretty hard.
All right.
To say you don't have a problem with it, I mean, look, just the fact that people get kicked off of Twitter and stuff like that, I have a problem with that. I don't think it sums up the libertarian position to say, I don't have a problem with that. It's fine. I think it sucks.
I don't need to be on Twitter.
No, I get...
Twitter's not a make or break. I don't need a bank at Chase
Bank.
Hold on. I don't
on.
need insurance
from
Progressive.
Hold on. So, let's just play this out a little bit.
Yeah.
So it starts with that, right? You get kicked off Twitter. You don't need to be a part of Twitter or whatever. All right. Fair enough. But what happened to Alex Jones was that Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, YouTube, like all of these, PayPal, a whole bunch of them all got together. They're all going to unperson him at once.
Right.
So now it gets a little bit worse. It's not just getting kicked off Twitter. It's like, this is literally taking away someone's career, taking away someone's voice from what has become the public square in 2019. Now, hold on.
Let's look at it a little...
Well, let me just finish this train of thought. It's not that far of a leap from that to also say, then, not just Chase Bank, all the banks can't get a credit card, can't open a bank account. Let's say they all get together. I mean, there's only like 4 of them. You know, they all get together. Now, if they were doing that to somebody, let's say for being a libertarian, let's say for having libertarian views, you got kicked off of all of those things at once one day, and they destroyed someone's ability to make their livelihood. They destroyed their ability to reach people and get out there. I certainly wouldn't respond to that by saying, I don't care.
Well, here's the biggest problem. In my opinion, you're existing within their framework where these companies can have that much control and power. So even take the Facebook thing with deplatforming. I think the only reason that the companies got together and did that was because they basically got a notice from the government, hey, we don't want this guy. I don't think that was independent from the government. Take his example.
Well, but okay, see, now you're getting closer to what my response to this would be.
But let's keep running with it. Let's take his example of Disney. I bet Disney's in Atlanta because it has better tax incentives. Now, I bet if every state could really compete for the best tax incentives to film in, there's a good chance that there'd be so much savings in filming in Atlanta, they wouldn't actually be making the statement. Now let's go to the banks. I don't think we'll ever live in a world where every single bank, where there's absolutely no option for somebody to go, hey, I'll give this guy credit. I don't think that, and if that does happen, that's because government legislation or these companies lobby the government to preclude other people from competing and having businesses. So to even walk into this framework where these companies have this much control, we're existing within a government picture.
Okay, so now I think you're getting into what is a much better libertarian response to this than what Tucker was saying. So for a libertarian to just say, "Oh, I don't care,"
but I still stand by that you'll have technological developments, and I don't.
Well, you can say that. Listen, I like that idea. My heart is with you. Here's the problem: I don't actually see it happening.
You see every bank getting rid of libertarians for being libertarians?
No, I'm not saying I see that happening. I see every bank getting rid of Alex Jones. Yes. I see that being only a few years off.
Right.
Like only a few years off. I see people like Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, Gavin McInnes, people like that being ruined. Being straight up ruined by being deplatformed. Like that I do see. I think it's a very real thing, and I think it's a very real threat. I don't think the libertarian response should be, I don't care. Whatever. Start your own Twitter. Start your own thing. I mean, It would be great if someone did start their own Twitter
definitely
or
shouldn't
their
be
own
his
YouTube.
call. Hey, we need the government to step in and make sure.
Well,
that...
right. So, but I'm just saying, it would be great if someone did start their own YouTube or their own Twitter and said, hey, this is a free speech platform. We're not going to kick people off. I would very much support that. Look, even for somebody like, like my friend Owen Benjamin, who, works up to having, over 100,000 followers on Twitter and then just fucking loses it like that. It's like, that sucks. Now, look, it is their right. It's their company. They can kick you off if they want to, but it still sucks. My response isn't just like, I don't care. I do care. I'm very disappointed in Twitter for doing that. And there is something to be said for the fact that, like, Twitter has become this place in America in 2019 where, like, Trump's talking about tariffs. We found out from Twitter. You're cutting another American citizen off from what the president is doing. I get that there's an argument to be made that, like, this is kind of crazy that someone can piss you off. Here's the thing, right? This is, I think, what the libertarian response is, in my view. It's not, oh, I don't care. It's, look, this isn't happening in a vacuum. This isn't happening in the context of some libertarian stateless society and everybody's rising up and the companies are doing this. We live right now in America in a society with the largest, most powerful government in the history of human existence. That's a fact. That is a fucking fact. The American government spends more money, spies on more people, bombs more countries, has more power than any. If America in 2019 went to war with America in 2000 went to war with America in 1974, we'd demolish them. So we have a way more powerful military than we had back then. We have way more powerful spying capabilities. We have $4 trillion to play with instead of whatever, the 500 billion or whatever they had back then. This is all happening within the context of this huge Leviathan, right? It's all happening within this context. And that can't just be completely removed. So even if you're going to say that, which I do think is a real threat, because all it takes right now is say, how many banks are there? Like big banks. There's Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, a couple other, Wells Fargo.
The ones who got FDIC and the exclusive right
exactly.
to counterfeit
so
currency.
This is the libertarian response, is that for a fact, we know, we're not even like theorizing, we know there'd be way more financial institutions if it wasn't for look, just Dodd-Frank. After Dodd-Frank, there were big mergers between these big banks. You know how many community local banks got put out by the crisis in 2008 that was completely caused by the government and the subsequent government response to it? So this is actually, I think, a way more sophisticated and accurate libertarian response, is that, you know what, you're right. There is a real threat to the government coming in and creating a situation where there are only a few big financial companies. So we better make sure they don't do that again. By the way, forget even those examples that I just used. Here's just a way better one, right? You're concerned that there's just only a few because, by the way, I'm focusing on the financial companies because to me that is the scariest part of all the things he's laying out. Like the idea that there are companies who could straight up go, you can't do business anymore. You can't have a credit card. You can't get a loan. You can't get any of this because you own a gun. Or look, I get what you're saying. Well, let me just finish this. Let me just finish this train of thought. I get your point that you're like, look, are they going to ban all libertarians? That's probably not happening soon. But just saying, Tucker drawing a line from saying these financial companies won't do business with someone who manufactures AR-15s to we won't do business with someone who owns an AR-15 is not that crazy of a leap. So if that is your concern, and that is a big concern, you don't want there only being a few financial companies that can conspire together and agree we're not going to do because, as you said before, if let's say Citigroup and Wells Fargo will do business with you, but Chase won't. Well, that's not that big of a deal. You just go with those guys. The risk is that Citibank, Wells Fargo, and Chase all won't do business with you. Okay, well, guess what? If you don't want there to only be a few financial companies, what do you think would have happened if we hadn't bailed them out when they were all going belly up? How many of these big banks do you think would still exist if the federal government hadn't come in and bailed these fuckers out after they tanked the economy? What you would have had in this industry is a shattering of these big banks into hundreds or thousands of smaller banks. And it would be much easier, right, in that situation where you'd say, so are you going to tell me you're going to be, because you might be able to get 3 multinational huge conglomerates to all be woke capitalists. But are you going to be able to get 10,000 local banks to all be woke capitalists? Impossible. Impossible. So to me, this is more the libertarian answer. And that's just the point I was trying to make. Like, that's all I was disagreeing with you about. I don't think our response should be, we don't care. Well, I think our response should be, this is very related to the huge government that we live under.
Okay. We're all in agreement that this is within the government structure and that's what creates these problems. But now let's even go back to what he was saying and the threat that he's trying to lay on the table that exists to our liberty, and why he's then going to say, this is why we need government to step in. We can both agree we don't want government to step in.
But so by the way, he doesn't even, and we'll play the rest of the video, but he doesn't even make clear what he wants the government to do. He's just basically like, libertarians will say this is fine, and you have to be a moron to believe that.
Okay, so even when he says, to me, it's still just, it is fine, because guess what? Guns are extremely popular. If Chase Bank said tomorrow, hey, if you're a gun owner, you can't bank here, they're going to take a fucking cut. And someone else is going to step up and start running commercials. Hey, we gladly welcome the real American hunters and people protecting their property. I promise you that'll happen. I promise you if all the banks did it, some online app is going to swallow a lot of the banking industry. I also, what's been going on with all like the pot banking, because those guys aren't allowed to use traditional institutions. And I bet that's created a big market for someone.
Yeah, but I mean, just to use that example that you have, I don't know what the latest on that is. I know that was a big problem for a long time, is that they couldn't get any financial institutions to work with the big marijuana distributors
because scared of federal law.
Well, right. So what you had with all these states that legalized pot, which is just a fascinating situation still to this day. But so you have California and Denver or Colorado. And they're like, pot's legal here. That's the state law. But the federal law is that pot is a Schedule I narcotic. You can get life in jail for fucking marijuana. And every one of these dispensaries is distributing enough to get life in jail. Now, theoretically, any day, the DEA or the FBI could walk into Los Angeles, California, go to a weed dispensary and go, you're all under arrest. And by the way, with the quantity that you are moving with clear intent to distribute, you're getting life in jail. Like, this is not, if you've looked at what marijuana laws actually are, it is insane how much time you can get for that shit. They'd be getting life in jail. At least that's what they'd be looking at. But they don't, because, they don't really want to start a civil war over fucking pot. And by the way, Obama was doing this. Obama, in the first 2 years of his administration, sent federal agents into California, arrested sick people, shut down dispensaries. There was a huge uproar about it, and he backed off because he needed to get reelected, and he needed these people worked up for him. So it was purely political. So they won't, but the financial institutions wouldn't mess with them because theoretically, you take their money. Now you're a big financial institution, so you're moving it across state lines. You're now moving drug money across state lines where it's not legal, but even by the state law, and you might be open for fucking some huge criminal charges. I mean, you're money laundering for fucking drug companies. So this is like, could be really, so they wouldn't touch them. Now, I don't know exactly what ended up happening to now, but I know for years they wouldn't fucking touch them. So it wasn't as simple as someone else will come in and fill that vacuum immediately, because we don't exist in a pure free market. If we did, someone would come in and fill that up immediately.
You were saying with the Obama thing, even Obama backed off of prosecuting the law of the land because it wasn't popular.
I agree.
So a lot of this is still open to just like, there's only so many liberties you can remove before people are like, what the fuck? It's true.
I mean, I don't know, dude. Look at fucking North Korea. Look at some of these countries. There are some governments that can remove a lot of fucking liberties. Right. And it doesn't, and you're right. You can only do so much if it's not popular. This is absolutely true. Look, even a fucking military dictator will be pretty cool if 100,000 people show up on his palace fucking lawn and are like, we want policy X. Believe me, pretty quickly that military dictator goes, I've thought about it, and I'm initiating policy X. Because there's 100,000 people on his lawn that will drag him away. So what they do is a slow propaganda campaign to move you more and more and more into that direction. And if they can move popular support into that direction, they will fucking clamp down on every last civil liberty. So I'm not disagreeing with you. Look, in the context of a free market, someone would come in and fill that vacuum right away. But that's not exactly the context that we live in. We live in the context of a free market with DEA agents with fucking assault weapons.
So how much of a risk do you really think it is that companies with the leftist agenda are going to start precluding or really having an effect on people? Like, take yourself. Maybe podcast gets so large, they realize, hey, Dave Smith's got a really big platform that is counter to our company's beliefs. And so we're barring him. Like, how much of an impact do you think theoretically that can have on your life?
Well, look, theoretically, if, let's say, they went after, they kicked me off Twitter, kicked me off iTunes, went after my sponsors, and went after whatever company hosts gasdigitalnetwork.com, because someone's putting us on the internet. I don't understand how it works, but they could ruin me. Theoretically, right? I mean, they could ruin me tomorrow. They could put my career out of business. I'll be back on the fucking road doing bullshit fucking shows away from my kid for
finally
most
living
of
a
my
better
life.
life. That's what I've been pushing for this whole time.
I mean, having a little bit of fun.
iTunes, shut it down already. I want to be on the fucking road doing comedy. I didn't even, you know what? I'm going to be lobbying to shut this shit down.
No, listen.
No
I'm not saying it's all bad. But no, I mean, look, theoretically, I could be ruined. And do I think it has an effect on the public discourse when pretty much, anybody who gets too popular holding the wrong political views gets silenced? Yeah, I think it's really bad. I think it's very bad. I think it's a big threat. But I also think that, as you said before, I don't think it's a threat coming from a free market bubble. And I actually think that moving toward more of a free market is probably our best guard against this. Listen, what Tucker, I think, gets wrong about all this is, number one, that the libertarian position is not whatever, we don't care, start your own Netflix. The libertarian position might be, it would be really great if you could start your own Netflix, or it'd be really great if you could start a free speech platform. The libertarian position is simply that bringing the government in to regulate these things is probably going to make it way worse and is wrong, is like immoral. So that's my only response to this, but I don't think we can just pretend that this threat doesn't exist. I actually find the woke capitalism thing to be pretty fucking creepy. I think it's pretty creepy when corporations are deciding we didn't like a policy, so it's like they're using...
It's new and it's odd.
Yes. Well, look, they're
when you say
using...
creepy is a good word for it. They're like, all of a sudden, like, wait a second, you guys are a business, and now you're going to start pushing for abortion?
And they're using a libertarian path to push a statist agenda. They're going, we will use boycotts to make sure the government has more control. There's something creepy about that. I mean...